Hey, my name is Nan Pham. I'm a yoga instructor based out of San Francisco, and I decided to make a YouTube video. I just got a hit of inspiration. Right now, I think it's about like 9:45, so it's pretty late, and I'm in my night clothes. so, and it's about to be the new year. So I just taught my virtual class tonight, and we talked about the new year. And one of the things that is mentioned in yoga philosophy is one of the Kleshas, reasons for why we suffer. And one of them is clinging on to the past. So I know for me, 2020 was super hard. In 2021, it's almost like everyone kind of got used to it and it got a little better. So, one of the things that do contribute to our suffering is clinging on to the past. And it becomes a thing of suffering because you think of it as like emotional triggers, right? And the way your reaction to the emotional trigger is not beneficial to what currently the moment calls for. So, one of the practices for the New Year's, I invite you to do it with me, is to let go of any of the emotional triggers and work on being emotionally current. And what that means is that to retrace the thing that may have triggered your emotion, and it's obviously it's going to be a negative emotion, and sometimes you trace it back and to figure out what exactly happened there, and to make sure that you use discernment in the current moment and to see that yes, it is triggering you, but you have to evaluate, take a step back and take a moment to see if that reaction is going to be helpful to this current moment. And one of the things, and one of the ways it kind of pops up is when you kind of self sabotage. I know for me, when a situation kind of gets bad, my my immediate reaction is to leave. I leave the person and I'm just like, okay, I'm good with this, or I just throw all the work away, or whatever it is. And obviously, that was very self destructive and it didn't propel me to what my real self, my highest self was. So, I invite you to let go of those things and to work on being emotionally current with the people or situations. So, when those things arise, maybe it's a person that triggers you. Probably the first step would be to minimize hanging out with that person and to develop strength that they no longer rock you, right? So they can say whatever the hell they want to say, and you're no longer rocked by it. It doesn't affect you, don't get triggered by it. And that's how you know you're becoming stronger and being your real self. Okay, your real self is always peaceful. Your real self is content. Okay, it's never triggered and nor reactive. Okay, the real self, the real you, is being able to respond. Okay, and with respond is taking responsibility for what you say or do. So that's just being taking a moment and responding with your highest self, and that would be the real you. Okay, the emotional triggers, the reactions, the explosions are not the real you. They are just confusion. You're just confused, right? So let me make sure that I said everything that I wanted to say. Oh, right. So after you strengthen yourself and you're exposed to maybe the person that triggers you, could be a family member, could be a past lover. When you're able to come strong, you allow them to speak, do the thing that they do, and the funny thing that happens is when they do try to emotionally trigger you and you're no longer bothered by it, they lose all the power over you. So over time, practicing that, and you know, the natural thing, especially for me, was to just run away and just avoid the whole situation altogether and just be like, okay, there's no problem here. However, when you do practice that and they no longer emotionally trigger you, it's like exposure therapy. This is no longer a problem. And one of the mantras that you can say for this is, I am bigger than any of the problems that I have. I am bigger than any of the problems that I have. And that immediately takes you from this lower vibration of reacting to responding, or not even responding at all. Okay? Silence is also a response. Silence is also an answer. Okay, and then make sure that I have said everything. Yeah, and you can tell if you are having this type of suffering, if you feel resentful, you feel vengeful, um, you feel anger, resistance. So when those things arise, or when the moment arises and you're not your highest self, it's when you feel really constricted and contracted. Okay, that's where you know, okay, I still need to work on this by myself before I can expose myself. And even when you do practice this and you think that you're strong enough to go to these things that trigger you from your past, even if you mess up, you just say, okay, messed up, and then you try again. Okay, that was the hardest part, that I would just give up. If I was in that situation and I got emotionally triggered, I'd be really hard on myself and then avoid the situation altogether again. But the part is, when you come to that situation, you say you mess up, you do the thing, you learned your lesson, you go back, maybe you journal on it or meditate on it, but you give yourself another chance. You give yourself another chance to be your highest self. Okay, so yeah, just working on this year of being emotionally current, leaving the past in the past, taking the lessons that you've learned from your past to show up with a higher vibration of a response and with your highest self. Anyways, I want to wish you a happy new year, and I think things will get better as long as we all kind of work together and make sure that we're vibrating on a higher level. Okay, good night.